Good morning. Welcome inside another edition of the Scores Table. Brian Haenchen joined by Danny Riego. We are here to recap the Sneakers for Santa. Danny and I spent, 10 hours at least at Brownsburg High School yesterday just watching game after game of basketball. So we have a lot of games to talk about and a lot of thoughts to get to. We're going to be joined today by Brooklynn Renn and Emma Schoen of Silver Creek. Silver Creek yesterday posted a 53-51 win over Gibson Southern when I would say, and I think Danny would agree, probably the best game of the day. Came down to the final shot. Gibson Southern had a look at it. Shot wouldn't go, but a fun game overall. But Danny, let's go ahead and let's start with the beginning, and that's Pendleton Heights and Jennings County. Jennings County pulls out a 49-47 win. Molly Ernstis, the point guard, comes away with, I think it was 30 points. She was super impressive. Outduels Casey Warfel and Ada Hupfer for Pendleton Heights. Let's kick it off and get your general thoughts on that game, buddy.
Yeah, I think we talked going into it, the role players and the players not named Molly Ernstis and what their point production was going to be. But it turned, I didn't expect it to, but it did just kind of turn into a Molly-centric game again and see how much volume and shots that she could get and who was going to make the plays late. But that was an interesting basketball game because you didn't get the sense of who was going to make the play. Sometimes it was Hupfer making the play, sometimes it was Warfel making the play, and in the end, I think it was Ernstis that just made the play and got the win for him.
Yeah, that was impressive. I'm trying to pull up the other stats here. Pendleton Heights, the potential's there. They had some trouble knocking down shots consistently, it seemed like, and just something wasn't quite clicking for them that they were able to get over the hump. There. It's been a bit of a tough stretch for them. I'm curious to see how they respond with a big rivalry game coming up Saturday against Mount Vernon. And that's a topic of conversation here. I caught up with Ada Hupfer and Casey Warfel. We'll go ahead and play that interview for you guys now. Away from the game today?
I think tough start. I mean, we came out, we didn't go as fast as we wanted to go, and obviously we knew they were a good team. I mean, they've got good chemistry, so, I just don't think we played the best game today.
Yeah, I think towards the end we rushed ourselves a little bit. We put up some shots that we should have maybe pulled it out a little bit, and we battled and came up short. Obviously, Molly's a really good player. They have a really good team, and we competed, but we just came up a little short.
Yeah, what was it like? It seemed like she was marking you a little bit. What was it like going against Molly today?
Yeah, it was good. I've played against her before, so it's a little competitive, but obviously physical team, but we competed. So.
Casey, what did you take away from watching Molly or playing against Molly?
She's a good player. I had to guard her some, and she's hit some shots, and I'm like, dang, got to get out on her. So, she's a good player, and yeah, that's all I say.
For you guys, did it feel like the offense maybe found a little bit of a rhythm there late the third quarter into the start of the fourth?
Mm-hmm. Definitely our plays, we started executing a lot better, and our shots started to fall. I think that was definitely a good boost for us, but I think it just happened too late.
Yeah, I agree. We had that little boost, and then we started picking up pressure again, and it started kind of falling back apart. But we had the good little stretch there where everything was executed well, and we were sharing the ball and moving it well.
Obviously, some really tough teams mixed in there with like a Lawrence Central and then Greenfield Central, like you talked about earlier. But how do you try and unlock consistency with this group? Like, what have you guys been trying to do? Just kind of find that consistency and build a little bit of momentum.
At practices, we're all trying. We're trying to come together more. At free throws during the games, we try to come together as a team. We just try to keep ourselves together throughout the whole game so we can win games like that.
Yeah, trying to keep our heads up, make sure we support each other. We know obviously we're playing really good teams. They're going to go on runs. Just make sure we're settling ourselves and staying confident in that when we step to that free throw line that we're up there, we're supporting them, we're together.
So Jennings County comes out with the win. Another standout performer for Jennings County yesterday was Etta Young, the sophomore. Dean, I think we were talking about her a little bit. 11 points. She had some big field goals there late and some critical free throws down the stretch to help put away the win for the Panthers. They improved to 2-4. They have East Central and then host Borden next week, so it doesn't get much easier for them. They're about where I expected them to be, honestly. Molly Ernstis, it was fun. I'll have something on her on Monday and just how she's kind of stepped into that role because obviously they lost a lot with graduating Olivia Elmore and Julianne Woodard, obviously, who's been tearing it up at Michigan State. So there was a lot to fill in there, but it's been cool, at least as an outsider, and kind of seeing in the spurts beyond just the stat box and just how Molly's filled in that role, taken on that leadership and just kind of embraced what we've been talking about of kind of being the go-to scorer while also trying to bring your teammates along and being that focal point of opposing defenses and the fun challenges and curveballs that can throw at a player.
Yeah, leadership is at its best, I think, when there's you set the example as the leader. Like, we talked about making plays. I think with about, I don't know, there's probably 90 seconds left in the game. Jennings County was down by 1. Pendleton Heights had the ball. They ran a side screen and roll with Olivia Jones and Ada Hupfer. Hupfer rolls to the basket. Ernstus, who you had mentioned before, was guarding Ada Hupfer. She drops and tips the pass, takes it, and then puts herself on a primary break, pushes it up, knifes it across the floor, and gets the finish. Okay. So there's the individual read, the individual play and execution. But then after Molly stole the ball, to get all the way to the other side of the court and have the eventual game winner, which put them up 1. Look, it's a crunch time play. It's a winning time play. And so you talk about leadership, that starts with performance, particularly in crunch time.
Absolutely. Any other thoughts from you, Danny, on the Pendleton Jennings County game before I move us on?
No, I think there was an interesting point where in these standalone varsity games, what I mean by the standalone varsity, like there's no JV game beforehand, right? And so the coaches have the ability, I think they have the ability anyways, to submit whatever roster they want to submit. I mean, I feel like if they wanted to put 10 kids or 15 kids on the bench, they could. There's a freshman in the class of 2028 by the name of Aniston Kent. And Chrissy had mentioned her name to me a couple of years ago, saying that she really liked what she was giving her at the 7th and 8th grade level. So she was previously on JV, puts her into the basketball game for the first time for her first ever varsity action. And when I talked to Christy after the game, that was the first name that she brought up. It's like, how about Aniston Kent coming out there? And so I don't know. Aniston Kent, maybe she'll never play another JV quarter in her life. I think it's just kind of one of those cool, feel-good holiday stories when a kid gets the opportunity, and now she's a varsity basketball player. But it also, from a team perspective, I mean, Hank, that we talked about Eddie Young and we talked about McIntosh. This gives Belding. I mean, she was there last year on the Woodard team also. This now just gives them another option of a kid that's going to, I mean, she was just chill too. She didn't do anything outstanding. She just didn't do anything terrible. And maybe that's sometimes a stabilizing factor for a team that's kind of searching for itself. So maybe they found something.
I think that was our exact conversation, because you mentioned her name and I looked through the box score to see where her name comes up and you said, no, probably no points, but she did a lot of the little things well. And again, didn't do anything wrong, which is all that matters. So Jennings County is an interesting team. Been an impressive win for them. And like I said, curious to see where Pendleton Heights goes from here, with rival Mount Vernon kind of looming next Saturday. That game, no matter the records, is always low scoring, not necessarily the most aesthetically pleasing in my experience, but always good for a tight finish and a pretty fun game, I guess, when it's all said and done.
Yeah, I'll take a look at it. I mean, they're loaded with talent. I mean, Pendleton Heights, it just didn't happen. Maybe it's a different narrative if that passes 6 inches higher.
Yeah. The second game of the day, Bollingbrook, Illinois, comes away with a 53-49 win over Crispus Attucks. The Banks sisters go off again. I'm waiting for the ticker to scroll through because I forgot to save my stats on that one. Really impressive performance again by them. The game is closer, I think, than it looks. Like, it felt like over the final couple minutes. I know it was a 2-possession game, I think, but it felt like most of the way that Bollingbrook was in control. Just the way it felt like they were hitting the timely shots, getting the stops that they needed, and just kind of kept them at arm's length away. For Crispus Attucks, it's my first time seeing them. Talking to Camera Banks after the game, she pointed out, and fairly so, that this is a brand new team. Nobody's really played together before. Everybody's still learning each other's roles, getting a feel for each other and how they play well together, or how they play together on the floor. And they're being patient with the process. And they viewed yesterday as kind of a win, and that they saw a lot of positive things. They were able to keep it close against a good team, a perennial power from Illinois. So there's some positives to build upon. And honestly, that's what you want to hear from a young program that is in the position that they're in. I am curious, just to be honest, how the pieces outside of the Banks sisters develop, because I think we kind of know. Yesterday, for me at least, was a friendly reminder of just how good Camera is, and her sister Kennedy is too. I'm more interested, and I think that in terms of long-term success, when we talk about sectionals and beyond, is what about everybody else? Because when you get into that sectional with a team like Chittard, well, they're going to take her away. They're going to put an Anna Caskey or an Olivia Berzai against them, and they're going to be able to take them away. And it's just, or they're at least going to be able to contain them. Maybe not take them away entirely, because that's a nearly impossible task, but they're going to be able to contain them. So who else is going to do it? Who else is being coached up to perform in those moments? And I didn't see that yesterday, which is fine. We're a month into the season, but when are we going to start seeing it? Because they have the loss to Purdue Poly and Zionsville and Carmel. So there's some good learning opportunities, but now when are we going to start, taking some steps forward? So that's what I'm curious to see with Attucks, but it feels like maybe, the potential is there.
It is there because you have, two of the better guards and one of the better backcourts in the city. To your point, there were a couple of things that Coach Cam was doing, on the offensive side, that was a little bit unique. This is the second time I've seen him live. So if they were doing it against Carmel, I missed it. But, if you watch a lot of NBA basketball, some of the more effective players and the efficient players in NBA basketball are Nikola Jokic, Luka Doncic, everybody knows that. But one thing that they do is Jokic will post at the free throw line, and extend it all the way out to the top of the key sometimes. In the absence of Jokic playing point guard, that's the way to get him the ball in central third with shooters around him in space. Coach Cam was doing the same thing with camera yesterday. He would have Kennedy bring it up. She would kind of shade to one side, and then Cam would actually post at the nail. So they're running some NBA kind of spacing stuff, but that stuff is facilitated on, if the defense shows you this look, then you go to this look. If they react to this way, then you do this. So there are going to be games where in that set, at least another person's touching the basketball per possession. But now Cam has the ball in middle third. She can make decisions. There's going to be games where I'm sure Coach Cam is going to ask her to score 30, 35. And there's going to be games where she's just going to have to pitch the basketball. And if she does pitch the basketball, do those kids make shots? And so, we'll see. But I don't know, kind of an interesting thing. And I didn't really think about it until you kind of said it. But yeah, that game was, it was fine. It was still early in the day. I don't think my brain had really turned on yet, to be honest with you.
Same.
It was tough.
27 points for Camera, 17 points for Kennedy.
Oh, those are good numbers.
Yeah, they're good numbers. And like I said, you know what you're going to get from them most nights. It's just a matter of what comes around him, cleaning up some of those little mistakes, a lot of turnovers at inopportune times, which Camera mentioned too, and just got to learn from him. And again, I love that mentality. Is just a generally positive person myself. And I also think that it's good with a team like that, program like that, to view it as positives and steps forwards. And as for me, it was cool to see a city school competing in an event like that. It'll be cool to see them down in Evansville North next weekend competing in that event too. So it's cool to see a Indianapolis City Schools girls team. I know this happens a lot for the boys, but to see a girls team from the city competing in events like that. Because there is some talent in there. We mentioned Purdue Poly, who we'll talk about here too in future episodes, but that's worth mentioning. Moving on to the next game, Danny, this is kind of like the big three you and I talked about. These were the three that I was most excited for, the in-state games. Brownsburg, Columbia City. Brownsburg comes away with a 67-58 win. Addie Baxter had a 3 late, which made it a little more aesthetically pleasing, I guess, on the scoreboard. But I think that it was closer. It felt closer than it was in the moment. It was a 12-point game most of the way through the fourth quarter, with Columbia City just right on the edge of cutting into that and really taking her on. It felt like they were always on the verge. And Brownsburg did what they do to most teams, and that is find Avery Gordon, dump it to her in the post. Avery goes up, hits an easy shot, and suddenly Brownsburg's back in control. There was an opportunity where Columbia City, I think they forced a turnover. It was a 12-point game. They forced a turnover, finally have a chance. It's okay, this is the moment. This is where they're going to go do something and get moving. And then they turned it over back to Brownsburg. Brownsburg took it down, scored again, and again, it kind of just keeping them at an arm's length away most of the way. Similar to the Fishers game, impressed with Columbia City's fight. This felt a lot more balanced, not a lot more balanced, but a little more balanced with some other players coming in. Dora Holler has been playing really well of late. She had 20 against Valpo. I think she had 16 yesterday. I'll check on that in just a second. So she's been playing well. Addie Baxter continued to do her thing. But yeah, and then for Brownsburg, really impressive impressive win against a team that was trying to pressure them a little bit. They had their hiccups against the press. That's been a bugaboo throughout the season, but they managed to maintain control and come away with the win.
Yeah, Columbia City had a good plan. We talked leading into it. I think there were, at least two questions in my mind. Some maybe we talked about on air and some of it maybe off air. One was going to be the Brownsburg zone. What adjustments did they make? This was a very similar player to, Meredith Tipner and Addie Baxter and the way that she probably wanted to attack the zone. The second thing was Columbia City's, I don't know. Did they have the personnel to be able to combat Avery Gordon? So the first question, the zone, I thought they had a good plan. They ran a lot of high-low action. And people think you say high-low and you're thinking, oh, you have to have two post players run high-low. You absolutely don't. All you're trying to do there is you're trying to pull the middle zone defender, who in this case is Avery Gordon, away from the basket to try to create opportunities. They got a ton of those opportunities. The problem is I thought they missed a lot of them at the rim. Now, some of that is because Brownsburg is so long, and not just through Avery Gordon, but just so long and so bothersome. And then in that same idea, if you can get middle touches and you can collapse the edges of the zone, that's where you get your kick out opportunities there. So I don't know. I thought they had a good plan. That middle person wasn't the same person every time too, so it wasn't stagnant. They were flashing in there. But Columbia City is a team that I think now, I think we just kind of leading into the next point, like Hank, doesn't it just kind of feel like they just have some limitations? Like they're really good. Yeah. They're well coached. Addie's great. But I mean, I think the formula in their two losses, Fishers and Brownsburg respectively, they just dug themselves big holes. They tried to get out. Addie tried to take the basketball game over, but they just have their limitations. So I think the early narrative on Columbia City for me is they're going to win a ton of basketball games, but I think they really need things to really kind of fall their way and shots to fall if they're going to beat, the quote unquote, good teams or the powers in there.
I was definitely conflating Columbia City with South Bend, Washington when I called it a balanced performance. Yeah, I'm at the point now where all the games are muddled together. It was kind of a two-headed monster for them with Tora Holler and Addie Baxter. Baxter finishes with 24, Holler with 17, and they just need that third person to come up more consistently. And I guess the good news is that they're going to be playing. They're playing in 3A this year, so the chances of them running into more, they're not going to have to deal with a Homestead, for instance.
Oh, for sure.
But you're right, and that's something that I talked with Addie and Tora after the game, and that they talked about, and just like we can't keep digging ourselves in these holes and expect to get out of it. It's not feasible, and obviously has not worked in the two big games they've had down here in the Indy area. So it'll be interesting, similar to Attucks, to not as pronounced a degree. I'm curious to see how those pieces develop around them consistently and where this team goes from there, because they have an Indiana All-Star and Addie Baxter. At least I think she should be. You have Tora Holler, who's been playing really well of late. So how do the pieces fit in around them, and where do they go from here?
Yep.
On the other side of things, Brownsburg, we mentioned Avery Gordon. How about this point total? 36 points for her.
Wow.
Impressive. Probably the best performance of the day, I'd say, maybe. I mean, there was some tough competition, but my goodness, Avery and what she did in putting that game away was pretty huge. Elle McCulloch, 12 points for her, despite having kind of an off night shooting. She was bombing threes earlier in the week. She only had a couple last night, but it was good enough to get it done. And then 8 points for Morgan Montgomery. I have a little bit of sound here for us, Danny. We have Elle McCulloch and Avery Gordon.
Had 36 points, big performance here, so that's great to see. That in and out game's good. We have people contributing. People, Bree Brown, Lanaya, Sammy, they're all making some shots on the outside and gets Avery some good looks on the paint. So we just have a good team balance, and that's just going to take on far from here.
Yeah, they're going to have to start guarding Elle, because a few times they were she was just hitting them in their faces, so she's definitely getting better.
Yeah, I'm curious. So what have you been focusing on improving as the season got going and even just through the summer?
Right. I've been mainly, people know me catch and shoot, so I've been trying to get some more shooting off the dribble and then just expanding aggressiveness and get some good drives. I think I had some early on. Struggled shooting a little bit today, so it was good to see that I can make some drives and dish out to other people.
What have you been seeing from her?
I've just been seeing her get more confident as a shooter. She's just a great shooter, and when she's confident and in her element, she can just drain threes, and I'm really proud of her. She's getting a lot really better, and if I'm not hitting, I know I can count on her to hit those threes and keep us in the game. So
I'm curious, what's different about the offense this year compared to last year? Like, what changes has Sable made with your system?
Well, I think a lot of it was focused on Avery. Obviously she's a stud. People can't really guard her. So, but having other people contribute, we have so many other shooters on the floor. You never know who's going to come off the bench and have a really good day. So that's really hard to stop. Like, you can obviously scout me and Avery, but someone's going to come make some plays.
Yeah.
So you go. That was Avery Gordon, El McCullough, following Brownsburg's win over Columbia City yesterday. My first time seeing Brownsburg. Avery Gordon is really fun to watch. We have another player who's really fun to watch. We'll talk about here in a couple minutes, and Maya Mikuleski, and then what's up in Washington did yesterday too. But that's a really great weapon to have. And when El McCulloch's dialed in, it's great to see, what she can do from the 3-point line. Like she mentioned, it kind of spreads out the opposing defense. But yeah, I mean, the press, again, we kind of talked about this last week, was a bit of a bugaboo at times, like where it's kind of a little bit of panic mode. And then you start making the turnovers that lets the other team back into the game a little bit. But when the game was on the line and it felt kind of like, all right, here's the moment where it's going to tilt one way or the other, Brownsburg figured it out and got the job done. And that's what matters in the end.
It's interesting that you use the word weapon for Avery Gordon, because 36 points. I mean, I can't imagine how many rebounds she had. She had to have had 15 rebounds too, right? Yeah. I mean, Hank, you effort that, I guess, while I rant on her. But Josh has weaponized her. Okay, so like the scout on her is, don't let her get deep. She turns over her left shoulder. Make her run the floor, all of those things, right? Well, Josh has leaned into that. He makes her run the floor. And but he does a good job through his baseline out of bounds package, their sideline out of bounds package, the different entries. I can remember a play that he has that he ran, I think twice in that basketball game, which is sometimes a lot for a coach. Like sometimes you run one play and then you run a counter. But it's for Avery on the strong side block and a little bit of an overload. And one time they got the diagonal lob in, they adjusted. Then a couple possessions later, they threw to the corner and McCullough got an open three. That was one of her multiple threes that she hit. And then I think they ran it a third time, and I think maybe Avery got free throws out of it. So he's weaponized her. He's just said, okay, if this is what she does really well, which is get deep, wants to turn over her left shoulder and make right-handed layups, he put her in that opportunity to do so on schedule. All the off-schedule stuff that she gets, is really just kind of gravy. But when both are working and Avery's getting offensive rebounds and getting the off-schedule point production, and Josh is dealing a little bit with some of his calls, that's how you get 36 and 15. I mean, that's an unofficial thing on the rebounds, but that's how you get 36. Is just getting her touches where she can do some damage. So I thought Brownsburg was in their rhythm. I thought they played really well around Avery, and I came away thinking, yeah, with McCullough, who I think, and I don't know how much, she. There's going to be games where that's going to be backwards. McCullough is going to be in the 25-35 range, and Gordon will be in the teens. But that's starting to turn into a nice little tandem. I think El McCullough has a heck of a candidacy to be an Indiana Junior All-Star. I think she's starting to get there, and I think that's a nice 1-2 punch. But it's unique because it's not just two good players; it's two different positions. And then judging from that interview, they seem to have some really good chemistry between the two. Also. Just seems like that. So I was impressed yesterday with Brownsburg because they made Columbia City look relatively ordinary, and I think they are anything but.
I'm excited to see, too, as Avery continues this season, moves on to college, is how she expands her game. I know they've been working on things in practice, kind of getting her some different shots in her repertoire But it's gonna be fun, and I'm excited too. I mean, Friday is a huge game for Brownsburg with Franklin Central. Like that's an important game for both teams. For Franklin Central, it's kind of like a statement win opportunity, and honestly, kind of the same thing for Brownsburg after beating Noblesville, hanging tough with HSE. They lost by 5 on Tuesday, so that's going to be a really important tilter type of game. But man, Avery Gordon just so smooth in there, and like you said, I mean, El McCullough had a phenomenal game as well. I'm going to jump us ahead, Danny, since we'll have guests to talk about the Silver Creek Gibson Southern game. So we'll talk to them and play sound for Gibson Southern towards the end of the show. Let's talk about South Bend, Washington, and Lawrence North. And I think of all the results, this was probably the most, startling in a way. Just looking at it from a Lawrence North perspective, impressive, extremely impressive from a South Bend, Washington perspective. Let's start with South Bend, Washington. Let's start with the winners. What a big-time performance. They lose a close one against Lawrence Central. They come back, and they hammered Lawrence North. I mean, that game, they tilted that thing. I felt like it tilted a little bit late in the first half, but the third quarter, they really took over. Triple-double for Kira Reynolds. Monique Mitchell, as I pull up the number here, I think she finished with 30. 30 points, career high for her. She had 4 threes in the first quarter, Monique Mitchell did. Raya Wilson with 13 points. Kira Reynolds, 17 points, 15 rebounds, 10 assists. Just a thorough throttling. And just, I mean, a really impressive statement win by the Panthers and one that they needed, frankly. You know, they beat Valpo, which is good. And now this felt like kind of a signature win over LN.
I was getting Julianne Woodard vibes and watching Kira yesterday. And that surprises a lot of people because, I think we've talked about Maddie Shirley as, giving us Woodard vibes. And I think we've talked about Katie Reed giving us Woodard vibes. I mean, the one thing that made that kid, Julianne Woodard, that is, so great was the dimension that she added with her passing. And so that was one thing. That's why she was giving me Woodard vibes in that. That's why she is in Kira Reynolds. But she passes the ball really, really well. And it's not just the scheduled sets, right? I mean, they run a lot of stuff out of that horns action. Like, for example, so point guard Raya, in this case, would throw the ball to the elbow to Kira. And then there's a lot of different dives that you just take and you just dive to the front of the rim and try to create, ISO posts or things like that. There were times where Kira would attack off of that catch. There were times where those sets were for Kira, like in middle post. But Kira draws so much attention when she catches the basketball that the right play a lot of times is to pass the ball. Okay. She was great at it. I would venture a guess. I think you said Monique had, what did you say Monique had? 7, or Kira had 17, Raya had 13.
Raya had 13, Monique had 30.
Monique had a nice little 30 piece right there, right?
Decent.
So I would guess, I'm just guessing here, okay? I would guess that the majority of Monique Mitchell's points were assisted, okay? Like in those inside-out threes, like she does have the game where she can break you down off the bounce and go, and she's not really the beneficiary of a lot of the, the primary leak outs and things like that. Kira plays at the top of the zone, so she gets most of those. So a lot of Monique's production has to come off of assists. And if you play through Kira Reynolds most of the time, that's how she's going to rack up those assists. I was really impressed with her passing. I mean, just right hand, left hand, bounce pass, lobs. She was tough. And when I walked around the gym during and after that basketball game, that's what everybody was saying to me. Like, oh my God, like I haven't seen Kira play in a long time, or I've never seen her, or this is the first time, or this is the best I've ever seen her. She was the narrative walking around that gym, and good for her, because there just seems to be a chip on that team's shoulder. Just, to me, does. And I think it's cool. I think it's fun to watch.
As you were talking about Kira's passing, I tweeted out a highlight of her passing it, from one corner to the other to Ryan Wilson, Ryan Wilson for an open three that made it 55 to 31. I mean, it looks effortless, and that's what's one of the fun, unique things. And here I'm going to play this video clip too, where she talked about one of the keys to the game, and that is just the team mentality. And she admits, I won't spoil it, I'll just play it.
Sometimes we can get like a little bit lost, like one person is like doing a lot of stuff, but I think today we were moving the ball. Our guards were getting it to our bigs, and our bigs, if they didn't have it, would give it out. Like, I think we were being really unselfish today and really good as a team.
Yeah, picking up on what Kira said, I feel like we played all together. It was no adversity for real. We just was ready to play, and that's when it all starts in practice. So we practice well this week, so we came to show.
I think some people on our team had like a role, like a specific role, like, okay, you're gonna guard this person, or okay, your role is to, when you get it, like, you know, look for other people and stuff like that. And I think people took their role seriously and, you know, ran with it, and I think that's how it came out there.
What was your approach to LN today? I mean, you guys had them shut down there, especially in the second half.
Just play them straight up, use our length. That's really all that we did. Yeah, that's what we handled it.
What did you think of the matchup with Jemiah inside? I know she's pretty big physical presence.
Our big had her under control. I feel like she did really well on her end. She just came to play.
I think she was real excited about her role. Her role was to try to make it tough for her, and I think that's really what she did. She was real excited about it. I think she executed really good.
Can you guys, speaking of roles, can you guys feel everybody kind of settling in just as the season's progressed? Can you feel everybody kind of, and for you two too, have you kind of settled in and found your rhythm within your roles?
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, because we had all the people come back from last year, so it's all just picking back up.
Yeah, I think this year, especially our seniors, are taking it. Like, we have the same group, but I think our seniors are taking it more seriously, so I think we are really more like them.
Really good edit out point by me. Again, thank you.
Missed it.
Yeah.
I missed it, Hank. I think you nailed it.
Yeah, thank you. Played as a team, played LN straight up, used their length to frustrate them, and I think that's a good transition to LN.
Before you do that,
Sure.
that clip to me, I think it says a lot. And here's what it says to me, okay? People don't know Kira's personality, okay? And she's not doing a lot of the sound, and you know, and I don't know, it has to be geographic more than anything else, just being up in South Bend, but she was good on the mic. And I think there's a lot of people that might not, you know, think that, because she does stay relatively stoic. She does stay relatively calm on the court. You know, her emotions seem to always, you know, be in checks. I mean, at some times, like, people would almost kind of view it as disinterest, right? With these young kids, sometimes that's just their personality as a kid. Okay. But when you put a camera in front of her and a microphone in front of her, that was a charismatic kid who was smiling, and she changed, you know, the inflection in her voice, and she sounded eloquent. That was kind of impressive. But I also loved like Raya. Like, I don't know. Because Raya's reputation in the States is being one of the best, if not the best, on-ball defenders. You know, just in an area, you don't want to see Raya Wilson. And she has just this, like, yeah, you know, and we just did what we did. No, we didn't do anything special. We just shrugged, as if to say, like, we're tough. And I think that comes out. I think that comes out with the way Raya plays, but then to hear the interview. So I don't know, Hank. I guess we're allowed to have these just kind of off opinions, but I think the interview says as much as the game did. I mean, it's a dominant performance, but I think it was really cool to see the personalities of Raya and Kira, at least for the audience maybe that don't know them as kids.
Other side of things, Lawrence North felt kind of familiar, if I'm being honest. They were without Kaya Hurt, who's banged up, but it felt familiar, where it's like one thing started to go wrong and it kind of snowballed in the wrong way pretty quickly. I'm not sure how they address it. I'm fascinated to see how they address it. And I mean, there's some big games coming up. They have Carmel on Monday. They have Marion County tournament coming up, and Lawrence Central potentially looming in the county quarterfinals. So it's kind of an important point in the season for Lawrence North, kind of a chance for them to start figuring some things out, even if it doesn't directly lead to wins, just being competitive and showing an ability, I guess, to fight through some things. Because for whatever reason, like, I went upstairs to edit down interviews with Silver Creek and Gibson Southern during halftime. It didn't finish like midway through the third quarter, and I look up and it's a 20-point game, and it's spiraling fast. And I mean, faster than any of the other games that day. honestly, and spiraling in a way that you don't really expect from a team with that many upperclassmen, that much experience, and honestly, a program with that kind of winning pedigree. It caught me off guard, to be blunt, but the talent's there. It just when does the mentality and the resiliency to fight through things start to come with it?
Yeah, I don't know, the old baseball cliche, like it's getting late early. Like they've had, I don't know how many games they've played, 6-7 games probably, but I think we saw the fourth rendition of their starting lineup. I mean, you had mentioned that Kaya wasn't there or Kaya didn't play. So they had just gone through the week before. They went through a lineup change where I think Ridley, maybe coming off the bench, and Teague inserted into the lineup, and Brooklyn Roberts got her first start. That was one of their more impactful freshmen. So I think they're trying to figure some things out, but you're right. They do have the individual pieces. And I'm stammering a little bit, Hank, because I don't know. It's just, there's just so much talent over there, and I just don't know. I mean, something's got to be maybe a little bit off. So just for me, I think I'll keep it on the floor. When you take a kid as talented, as an impactful as Kaya Hurt out of your lineup, you tend to learn things about your basketball team. And I thought what Lawrence North learned, I think what Steven probably learned, having not talked to him after the game or this morning, I'm sure we'll connect maybe at some point in time this week, but I thought that was the best rendition of Kiki Butler that I had seen all year.
Agreed. She's phenomenal.
She was downhill attacking. She was in space. Okay. So now it begs the question, okay, well, what is it in combination with Kaya Hurt that precludes her ability to do that? Okay. But they have the perfect team. Steven may just go back to the drawing board on everything. Like I wouldn't be surprised if he went to some double barrel dribble drive or something with just Kaya and Kiki in the middle of the floor and went more shooter based in the corners. You have Jemiah, who's certainly a weapon and certainly a very nice chess piece for Steven that he can kind of now space away from the basketball. But I think Kiki was the last of the starters to come out. Okay. And in the absence of competitiveness on the scoreboard, I'm just trying to figure out anything that I can see to talk about Lawrence North. And Kiki being the last one to come out of the basketball game, I mean, she was on the floor with freshmen at the end of the game, like kids that played JV freshman ball, and she's out there, right? I almost think that Steven was just kind of seeing what I saw, which was like, wait a minute, where's this Kiki been and why is this happening? I think that he gave himself a couple of extra minutes. So when they get healthy, Kaya's back and Kiki's back, which is a joke, by the way, of a backcourt. Like to just say those two names casually, like, hey, that's their starting backcourt. That's silly to me. But if they can get Kaya cooking and Kiki cooking at the same time, maybe a return to the par level that we expected from Lawrence North when the season began. I don't know. What say you nodded when I said that? So you felt like Kiki was effective also?
Oh yeah, she was great. They're easily their best player on the floor, 17 points, and we aggressive going to the hoop. She had a great game. I think she just ran out of gas. It's kind of what Steve and I talked about afterwards. She just ran out of gas late. I mean, that happens when you're carrying a team like that against a team of Washington's caliber. And she played great. Steven's a good coach. He'll get them together. He just, like he said, is that they got to learn to play through adversity, and that's part of the learning process. And to be clear, nobody's bagging on LN just so things don't get twisted around. It's part of the learning process. It's the same thing that South Bend, Washington's going through right now. And they talked about that later in the clip, is that, they're coming off losses to Lake Central in the regional or semi-state or whatever. Like they're having to learn. They had to learn from that same way that Lawrence North is going to have to learn from this and what happened last season, so some good opportunities for them to build some positive momentum, and it'll be interesting to see.
It will.
Here comes a really great transition, because one of the teams to beat Lawrence North this year is Silver Creek, and Silver Creek played yesterday, and we have two of their best players joining us right now, Daniel. We are now excited to be joined by Emma Schoen and Brooklynn Renn of Silver Creek. Silver Creek yesterday won over Gibson Southern 53-51, best game of the day, really exciting game. How you guys doing?
Good.
So just for starters, I'll start it broad and then let Danny drill down into some of the specifics. But a tight game yesterday. What did you guys think of the way that you finished that thing out yesterday?
I think we showed that we're more upper class and upperclassmen, and we had smart IQs and knew we didn't need to force anything around the 2-minute mark, because we knew Gibson Southern's a good team and all of them can score. And so I think we knew now we just need no threes, no easy shots, no fouls, and then also just holding the ball and then looking in easy layups.
I think it mainly came down to our team chemistry. You know, we have great team chemistry on and off the floor. We have great teamwork, so I just think we trust each other in the end.
So, Hank, or Brooklyn, anybody? Somebody told me unofficially that Brooklyn, you had 20 points and 20 rebounds. Hank?
Yeah, that's what I heard. That's what Scott yelled at me as we were talking.
Okay. So 20, Brooklyn, you probably also had, I don't know, a half dozen blocks, but changed probably a half dozen more. There just seems to be more of a dedication to rebounding the basketball maybe this year. I mean, is that something that you're just doing naturally, or is that something that you've just kind of focused on, hey, I'm going to pull down offensive and defensive rebounds? I mean, 20 and 20, against that basketball team, it's not something, that's the defending state champ that you just pulled 20 boards down against. So is that something that you've just kind of, that Scott talked about or your team talked about or you've thought about in just crashing the glass more?
Yeah, for sure. Before the game, we knew that Paige, she averaged 6 offensive rebounds a game. So it's I knew that my job was to get as many rebounds as we can, because that's obviously what's going to keep us in the game.
That's pretty great. And then Emma, this is now, I think, the third time where I've seen you have a dedicated, very specific job on the defensive side of the floor. Okay. We talked in a previous episode about your defensive assignment against Molly Ernstis. Today was Gabby Spink. So just kind of talk about it. Do you get to the gym knowing, hey, dad's gonna put me on Gabby? Do you ask for it? Is that just assumed? Because you're really good at it. Just kind of talk about that role and what that means to you and how that just kind of evolves.
I just know he's gonna put me on an assignment, because I feel I can be trusted to try and lock them down, which everyone I've had to do an assignment defense, Ernstis and Spink, I know they're going to get their points. They're good players. So just first I just got to know they're going to score. So I can't let that be they scored on me. But I just know they can't get to 26 points. They can't get to 30 points. That means it's going to be a tough game or we're going to lose. So just thinking that. And then also I know Lydia Wright, she's our Cobra. I know she's going to also have my back. So I know I can give a little bit with her knowing she's going to come and help me.
I got to ask you just in a lighthearted way. Who's the best player you've guarded this year? Not the best player. I'm not asking you to rank the players.
Who's been the most difficult
Who gave
player
you the most problems?
Probably Molly Ernstis, because her shooting and her posting and stuff, she's definitely giving me the most problems.
Emma, I just happen to have the clip here and it's playing on repeat when you got that deflection late in the fourth quarter, final 2 minutes, and then Hannah Sen throws that court length pass to you to spring you loose to put you guys up 5. Is that something that you work on, that specific court length pass during practice, or did you just kind of improvise that in the moment?
I think that's Georgetown, and so we practice that a lot, and I trust Hannah. I know she's going to throw it whenever she sees an opening, so yeah.
Speaking of Hannah, I think we talked about her after the game yesterday, her being a senior, making kind of those senior plays like that assist, some big steals for you guys. She had 14 points. Just tell the audience, I guess, just what she's meant to this group and just the leadership and things that she provides coming off the bench for you.
She's this is her first time playing varsity like minutes, like starting and stuff. But she's definitely like come in clutch during like close games, and her rebounding, like she's gotten so much better rebounding, and then also scoring, like that's like a Hannison like I haven't seen. And so whenever it's like we need points, like I know she can hit shots, and like she knows how to drive it to the rim.
For me, I think Hannah knows when we need her, and she also knows what her role is mainly. Like in that game, we knew we needed her to finish plays and ultimately just rebound the ball. So I mean, she's a senior. She does senior plays. She's been there 4 years. She knows what the team needs.
Brooklyn, are you the one going against her during rebounding drills? Are you the one toughening her up? Do you deserve some of the credit here for Hannah Sen's development as a rebounder?
I mean, you could say that, I guess.
There you go. There you go.
There you go. Yeah, take some of the credit. Hey,
Yeah.
Brooklyn, I'm curious, and Emma, I'll ask you the same question, but as an 8th grader watching Silver Creek's run to that state final for a second year in a row, I guess just do you have any fun stories from that, experiencing that as a spectator? And I guess just what is it like as a kid in the Silver Creek area getting to experience that and knowing that you're going to be part of that program here in the next year?
For me, I mean, it was amazing just because me and Emma are really good friends, and we would always ride up on the bus with the team. So getting to see that like firsthand was amazing, to know that we have to fill those roles the next year.
Yeah, it was always fun, like riding up with the team, riding back with the team, and just like getting in the locker room and like knowing how everything went. And like this, whenever they went on the state run, and even up to like the state championship game, like we got to eat with them and stuff, and like go and see practices before, and it was just really fun. And then like just knowing like we're gonna be going into that.
What were those teams like? Like I got to see them a couple times. I just moved to town, so I got to see them a couple times. But just what was that group of girls like? Do you guys remember as being younger kids then?
I think they were very determined. Like they didn't have the best team chemistry, but they knew they needed to get the job done. So they put all the problems aside and ultimately just came together.
Yeah, like watching them, they were always in the gym. So I always looked up to Kennedy Mason Striverson because I felt like I'd be in her shoes. And so like watching her just be in the gym, making plays and all that. But same with like what Brooklyn said, like we've heard stories, not the best team chemistry, and like, but we knew like they always came together. Like you could never see that on the court.
Those were Emma, those were the Striverson teams, right?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Yeah, okay. Well, ironically, and they actually in one of the state championship games played South Bend, Washington. Ironically, I mean that was like the Rashonda Jones team, that was the Amaya Reynolds team, that was the Mila Reynolds team, that was like one of the best high school basketball teams. I think maybe before Success Clause pushed them up a class. I can't remember the exact details, but yeah, I mean Striverson. I mean that team to be on the same court as that juggernaut and that wagon up there at South Bend, Washington that they used to have. Those were some fun teams. But anyway, Hank, you were saying before
I should ask too. I'd be remiss if I didn't ask. 7th grade year, were you guys riding up on the bus the year that they won it all too?
Yes.
Yeah, all through our middle school.
Cool.
Yeah.
I'm curious on the chemistry thing. You mentioned that it not being as good with those teams. When you guys came in as freshmen, could you feel the chemistry kind of shifting? Because it seems like it's just in talking to you guys, it seems like it's a lot different this year maybe than it was back then. So how has it kind of developed and cultivated, and what have you guys done to try and help bring everybody together?
I think mainly just because we have a saying where, I mean, you might hear it when we break it down, Ubuntu. It means I am who I am because of who we all are. So that's mainly what we go off of, and that's our culture. And I mean, me and Emma as freshmen, we were expected to be leaders from the beginning. So we came in knowing that we had to lead, even though there are seniors there leading as well.
Yeah, I could like the team chemistry, like we try to always like do stuff together, but most time like we just have our team chemistry like just in the locker room before practice. Like we don't really do like go out of our way and go hang out like outside, but most of the team chemistry just comes like before games and during practices, in the locker room, on the bus.
So you guys talk about team chemistry, and you guys have mentioned, both of you, in different sentences have mentioned seniors that have been there forever. I was impressed with Emily Robeson. Okay. Come to find out after the basketball game that Emily's only been there not for 4 years. She's only been there for 4 hours, it seems like. I mean, relatively new. This is a transfer from New Albany who played a full 4A schedule. She was a major piece for them, and now she's kind of injected herself into a rotation. She made plays yesterday, and she made plays on both ends of the floor when they needed it most. There was a big run that they were going on where she kind of capped, I think, 2 of them with layups. But can you guys talk about the injection of somebody new like that? It's like in the middle of, not the middle of this, but yeah, the middle of the season really is just kind of bringing a kid in who's going to make plays. What's that been like? What's she like? What has that been like? How has that all transpired? Talk about that.
Go ahead.
Sorry, she just clicked instantly. And just from the start she came in, I remember the first time we all met her really, and that was during a Dragon Youth League camp. And she just clicked instantly. There was nothing awkward or anything. And then she did have to miss 4 games and stuff, but during practice, just helping her do what we do, defensive wise, she just knew how to do it. And then also just helping her.
For Emily, I think her personality is a personality where she gets along with anybody from the start. Like Emma said, at that Dragon Youth League, we were all laughing together, having fun. And then she's also a fast learner, so she knew, she learned from Scott. She knew what her role was. She knew that she had to come in and help us, when maybe people weren't having their best game.
Yeah. I'm curious, looking ahead. I mean, the schedule really doesn't lighten up at all for you guys. Scott really did a good job. Stagnant. You go out to, you have to play a team from Kentucky. Then you got Greensburg. Fortunately, you have Scottsburg coming up too, as well as Avon down here. I guess just what do you guys think of playing this type of schedule? I mean, this is 4 years of this now. How does it help you as players? Do you like it? Do you embrace it? All that good stuff.
I think it helps that we came from 4A. Me and Emma as freshmen, we were in the 4A sectional, so I think it helps us to be playing tougher teams like that.
Yeah, what Brooklyn said, it definitely helps us, and we're not thinking too far in the future, but also helping tournament run. You don't want an easy schedule and then you stumble upon Greensburg. That's a good team. And so playing tougher, a tougher schedule and tougher teams definitely helps with putting us in certain situations. So then we know how to figure that out later.
What's the energy level mentality going into a game against the Gibson Southern? You're playing defending 3A state champion. Is it confidence in the locker room? Can you feel, is the energy different? Can you tell? Is there more energy and excitement, or are there nerves oh, we're playing a 4A defending state champion type of thing?
I think we basically just have the same energy every game, just knowing who we are, and mainly that it's Silver Creek versus Silver Creek. It doesn't matter who we're going up against. It's us versus us, basically.
Yeah, like Brooklyn said, Silver Creek versus Silver Creek, we know we're going to go in with confidence. It doesn't matter who we're playing, but there's definitely energy in the locker room no matter what. We're always going to get hyped. There's definitely nerves, but that's just playing games. That's just going to come with it. But there's a lot of energy in the locker room.
You guys mentioned this playing in 4A, and I'm curious, having gone through it and played up in 4A and not being able to get out of sectional, do you like that? Did you like playing up in 4A, or would you have preferred success factor not be a thing, for lack of a better way of putting it, and then you'd be able to continue playing?
Honestly, I think it helped us just for this year and even next year. It built us to be the team that we are today, because if we were in 3A, I don't think we would be this strong of a team. So I think we definitely developed being in 4A.
Yeah, it definitely did help, playing B&L when Chloe Spreen and Carson Norman and all of them were there, as freshmen. It definitely, it hurt, coming in as freshmen and, having to play, in 4A and stuff during sectionals. But it helped us a lot.
And then Brooklyn, for you, just a recruiting question for me, last one for me, Danny. I don't know if you have more, but recruiting wise. You had the offer recently from Cal. If you could just update folks on your recruiting process and how things have been looking and any timelines or anything like that, visits that you have upcoming.
I'm just taking it day by day, just getting to know each and every coach and team, and just ultimately seeing what fits, like what's best for me.
What visits have you taken over the summer?
I actually didn't really get to take any visits over the summer just because I'm busy with volleyball too.
Yeah.
So, but I plan to take more this year.
Sure. And then Emma, how about for you? How's recruiting been looking for you? Has it kind of been picking up, heating up lately?
It's steady. I'm just taking it day by day, like Brooklyn said, like just not looking too far or anything, just going with the flow here.
That's awesome. Well, thank you both so much for joining us. Emma, again, I apologize on Danny's behalf for the things that he said about you.
Oh, she said that she told me that she accepted my apology, which really means the world to me.
Yeah, that was very nice of her. I'm gonna never let you live that one down though. But thank you both so much. Best of luck to you guys the rest of the season. I'm sure we'll run into you guys again. And yeah, thanks again for joining us.
Thank you.
Emma Schoen, Brooklynn Renn from Silver Creek joining us. Danny, I'll let you vamp while I get the audio queued up for Gibson Southern.
I'm not sure that. I mean, we asked the question on the previous episode when we were previewing Sneakers for Santa that is this the best 3A basketball team that's there? Okay. Mm-hmm. They did nothing for anybody that felt like the answer is yes. They did nothing on Saturday that made you back off that opinion. It's probably the other way around. I think there's a lot of people that walked out of there saying, I just don't know if there's another 3A team that's going to get them. They're complete. Emma has been really good this year. Okay. Brooklyn has been great. I think both of those kids have tremendous candidacies to be Indiana Junior All-Stars. Okay. I would go as far as to say Brooklyn's probably a shoo-in, but don't sleep on. I mean, Emma, what she's doing at Silver Creek, game to game, night after night, it's just something different. I think she's had a game already this year where she's hit 7 threes, and she's had another game where she's guarded somebody to prevent them from hitting 7 threes. She just does what she does, but that is a really strong candidate to be an Indiana Junior All-Star. So when you have 2 of them in 3A, that's going to be a problem. Brooklyn had talked about how they're really good friends, but they need that tertiary production. They need the X factors, the role players. Okay. And Lydia Wright is the obvious choice. As she was mentioned in the interview before, she can score for them. She's been around them. She travels with them. She's friends with them. I mean, so Lydia is probably the best candidate to be that kind of X factor, if you will. But I'm blown away with Emily Robeson, and I just am. And she just fit. And I couldn't, it was hard, to focus on something other than Renn's 20 and 20 and the defensive performance that Shane put on Spank. But for her, she's going to get more comfortable. Like the other thing that it allowed Shane to do is it allowed him to play Emma off of the basketball on the offensive side. He had somebody that he could have bring the ball up, trust them to handle pressure, trust them to read defense, implement what they wanted to do. But now it's, Emma's not getting rid of the basketball and then emptying out. And he's just another player now that you can trust. They run a lot of sets where multiple players touch the basketball. A lot of sets, sometimes it's just one player touching the basketball, maybe 2. But in some of their sets, they're a little bit deeper into the clock. The action, and whether it's trying to get a double stagger or floppy action for Emma Schoen to hit a 3, or whether it's a late pin down for Brooklynn Renn, Robeson changed them. And I think that's a scary thing because before I knew Emily existed, I already thought that they were, if not the best 3A team in the conversation in a handful of the top teams in 3A. But now they're better. And so I'm going to watch how she kind of mixes in. But Scott has a luxury because he was gifted with another chess piece. And it doesn't look like this is just a piece. It looks like this is an officer.
Robeson, I'm watching as you were talking about that. It's like you mentioned it. And I look at the timeline and there's a video highlight playing of the person you're talking about. If I was more technically adept, we'd have those highlights playing. But her going in gives him a 38-37 lead late in the third quarter, makes a nifty little move to get to the basket, absorbs contact as she finishes. The Gibson Southern player comes in to box her out, but just a savvy move. And like you said, man, like they're really impressive. Chittard has also been impressive of the 3A teams that I've seen so far. I would love to see those two teams specifically at this point of the season go against each other, because I think the guards would match up well with the pieces that Chittard brings versus Silver Creek. And goodness, the Anna Caskey, Alex Kendall against Brooklynn Renn would be really interesting, because they're such physical presences. Renn has that physicality, but she can also, she can step out and shoot the ball so well. It'd be really fun to watch. And she's so smooth.
Who's so smooth?
Renn's smooth to watch. Like I enjoy watching her play.
It's look, forget the point production, okay? Because the point production, she's had games. I think we talked about the 12 for 12 that she had against Jennings County. 20 in this one, but this one also was against Schnaus. Mm-hmm. And that's not a shot at Paige or whatever, but Paige is one of the better players at that position within that class, and doesn't give up any height to Brooklyn. So for her to be able to do it against Paige says a lot. But the 20 rebounds, the 20, if you subscribe to the theory that you don't get defensive stops, or defensive stops are punctuated with defensive rebounds, Brooklyn was like, Paige gets 6 offensive rebounds a game and I'm going to crash the defensive glass. Like that stuff happens because Scott's talking about that. And so there's another advantage, but she now has her stamp. If all 20 of those are defensive rebounds, and they weren't, okay, but if all 20 of those were defensive rebounds, Brooklynn Renn is responsible for punctuating or putting her mark on 20 stops in that basketball game. Like that's a ridiculous number, not just from a physicality and talent perspective, but also in just game flow to be able to get 20 stops. So they're efficient on the offensive end. They're getting stops. We've seen clues to really good pregame planning by Scott Schoen in the execution, and now the chemistry and Emily Robeson. So, but to come full circle, for her to get it for Renn to get that stuff against Schnaus, that said a lot about where her game is.
Beautiful segue, Danny, because that's where I wanted to take us next is Gibson Southern. And that's a good place to start is Paige Schnaus, and just talking about her development coming into this season, some interesting insight from her on how she's handled her development and some different things that she's been working on coming into year 2.
Have you noticed a difference in the way teams are defending you? Like, are they putting a little bit more attention on you in the post this year?
Yeah, there is a little more attention on me, but that's better for the outside shooters as well, because if they come and crash down on me, then Gabby's open and wide down up there and she can get a shot.
How have you handled some of that?
It's been rough and I get frustrated sometimes, but just keeping my cool and making sure I keep my composure is definitely the.
What's I guess the toughest part of that? It's kind of an obvious question, I guess, but what's the hardest thing about having so much added attention?
Probably, obviously, just keeping my composure, just staying calm, because I am one to kind of get out of control a little bit sometimes, but just keeping my calm is definitely the hardest part.
And I think last year, obviously she was a freshman, so she got some easy buckets. And so this year, knowing how she did last year, girls being on her, maybe not scoring as much, or not as much, but having easier positions to score kind of is harder. But we're working on having plays and sets to be able to continue to get her open. So I think just being able to execute that and get her some points early will help too.
That was Gabby Spink and Paige Schnaus talking there about Schnaus and some of the changes she's going to make in year 2. And we talked afterwards too. Paige also plays soccer, and I was curious, and she kind of mentioned, it has helped being a multi-sport athlete, because soccer, it's the same kind of thing. You get some adverse situations, you have to learn to fight through it. So she's kind of learning as she goes and matures just how to handle adversity. And it's impressive that a kid recognizes that. I'm sure that it's been told to her and all that stuff, but it's still impressive that she acknowledges it and is working on it. And then it's good too that her teammates are there. Gabby, you'll talk about that in a story that I'll have tomorrow, just how you try and help a kid through that and the learning process that goes into it. But potential's there for Gibson Southern inside.
I think Kyle has vaulted up, my best coaches rankings. I think Kyle's really good. It started back at the state championship. I love the way that he attacked Norwell's odd front zone, kind of playing behind it, not being afraid of the corners, throwing the long skips, diving Paige into the middle of the floor. He had a really good game plan I think also for Silver Creek. And it's not just, the global game plan, but it was also kind of the individual pieces. He was calling sets out, particularly their baseline out of bounds package. They were doing some things like there seems to be like a short corner post fake handoff. Everybody in the world runs this thing. And it's designed just to create kind of a one-on-one for Brooklyn on that catch. But they shaded the inbounder, the defender that was guarding the inbounder. They shaded her to the corner. Generally, that's something that you shade to the basket to protect the basket. But they knew exactly where the ball was going. They tried to make it uncomfortable for Silver Creek. We talked about the pregame planning and the preparation that Scott Schoen had in place. That's not exclusive to Scott in that game. Kyle did a really good job too. So I think they're really, really well coached. But I do think that Kyle has to deal with something this year, and not in a bad way. I think the loss of Chloe Graham and the loss of Malone has them, I still think that they're in kind of that Jennings County box that we talked about earlier, really still trying to figure out who they are. Gabby Spink missed some time earlier in the year with the knee injury. So she's coming back. And so I think Gibson Southern is going to be fine. I don't think they're anywhere near where their level is going to be. I think they're the odds-on favorite to win their sectional, and then once you get into that one-game regional, anything can happen. But the reason why I point that out is because I have such respect for the way that Kyle goes about his business.
Kyle Raptor, by the way.
Yeah, that he goes about his business. That if they can get through sectionals, and now you give them a week to prepare for a singular opponent in a standalone game on regional Saturday, that regardless of the opponent, Kyle's going to have a really good plan in place. He's going to have it implemented, and they definitely have some pieces. But and I'm kind of jumping around. It started with Paige. I was impressed with Paige's ability to shoot the three. It drew Brooklyn Renn away from the basket, where she's really good at protecting the rim. Interestingly, Emma said that, Molly kind of gave her problems, right? I mean, Gabby in this game was more of a downhill attacker. Most of her highlights that she made were kind of drives in the open floor kind of stuff, downhill attacking. That makes Emma's job easier to have Brooklyn behind her in rim protection. One of the reasons why Molly might have given her a hard time is because she didn't really drive on Emma at all. She just kind of wanted to get some space on the 3-point line and kind of shoot. But anyways, I'm jumping around here. Paige gets better every time I see her, but her ability to make shots in that game is oversimplistic, but that's what really stood out.
16 points for Spink, 11 for Schnaus, 8 for Lydia Maurer, who had some key shots in there. I thought she had more than 8 points, but I think it was the timing of her shots that it felt like they came in some critical moments. 7 points for Nola Ravelette. The highlights on my Twitter feed, Gibson Southern has a chance on the final possession to tie or take the lead. They give the ball, they inbound it directly. They don't have any timeouts. They're kind of just rushing out to the made free throw. They manage to get it in to Gabby Spink. She gets around midcourt, drives to the basket, looking for either the bucket or the foul call. Looks like a little contact. I don't know if there was enough there to warrant a foul whistle. Either way, a shot wouldn't go. I'll play the clip here at just the general interview with them and Gabby talking about that last play.
Basketball players, obviously, we would have liked that shot. I would have liked that shot to go in or get a foul call, but I think we kind of knew, between me and Paige, one of us needed the ball in our hands.
Just see the driving lane and just try and attack it?
Yeah, and I mean, I had gotten that call all the game, so my goal was to, if I didn't hit it, to at least get some free throws. So, yeah. We're more advanced in the beginning of the season this year than we even were last year. So I think obviously we're 4A, so we have to be able to handle this competition, but I think we're doing good this year and just continuing to do that.
Yeah, I'm really proud of our girls because they have stepped it up and it's just been great.
So when you say you're further along at this point this year than you were last year, what differences do you see? What surprised or impressed you most about this group?
I think just the ability to even with the doubt, and knowing that we have a target on our back, winning a state championship last year, to stay together even in times that we want to separate, and kind of get onto each other, but knowing that we're all making each other better, I mean, these games are what we need. And even though we might lose some games, it's better to come down here and get some competition for postseason to be able to go further. And Coach Branger does a great job about that. We'd rather come down to Indy and play good competition and maybe be short a loss, but knowing that it's going to make us more advanced in postseason and just continue to win. Because, I mean, we're hoping for our 4th sectional win this year and my 4th sectional win. So just being able to come up here and have some good competition is just, I mean, like she said, it's great for the program and a learning experience for us.
Paige Schnaus, Gabby Spang following yesterday's loss to Silver Creek. It was interesting to me, Danny, that she sasaid that the team is further along this year than it was at this point last year. And just as a point of reference, at this point last year, they were 1, 2, 3. It's fascinating. 6-1, it looks like. This year, they're 5-2, so an extra loss. But they've already played Castle. They've played Chittard and beaten them. And they've played now Silver Creek too. So I think it seemed like, just reading between the lines, listening back to a little bit of chemistry, and then also just a more battle-tested group than they were even last year. Your thoughts?
Scary. It's scary if that turns out to be true. I liked Gibson Southern yesterday. I told somebody before the game, okay, and I don't know if this is going to get back to Kyle, so I hope he doesn't. Yeah, but I thought that was 7.5, 8.5 points. Silver Creek minus that. I think I just had seen Silver Creek a little bit more. Maybe I hadn't seen Gibson Southern, but they were really impressive. I think the key, one of the things, and I think it's fixable. I think Gabby had to work. Wait, what did you say? She had 15, 16, 17, kind of in that range. She didn't get to 20, did she?
In that range, yeah.
Yeah, 15. High teens. She had to work hard. She had to work hard for that kind of point production. And that's the formula that Scott employs, right? If you're going to score 20, we want you to have to take 20 shots in order to do it. He subscribes to that theory, talks about it quite a bit. There's a lot of, it's dogmatic in the coach's world. Like, that's just, those are the numbers that you try to have. But Gabby, they've got to find a way to make it easier on Gabby. Some of this is on Gabby. A lot of this is on Gabby. But I think one of their progressions to watch over the next half dozen basketball games is, does Gabby's job get easier in getting her shot volume, creating a little bit better efficiency metrics? Does it get better against the good basketball teams? But Gabby's on track to be an Indiana All-Star. She's putting on numbers. Her head seems to be in a really good space. Talking to her before the game and now listening to that interview, she seems like she's in a really good spot.
Yeah, and more tests coming up for Gibson Southern. They host Franklin Simpson out of Kentucky and Owensboro. In Owensboro, I'm assuming that's the same event that Silver Creek will be at. Then they come back up into Evansville for a game against Fishers. That'll be an interesting game because, again, you have the Dickman Schnaus. You have Shellhammer for Fishers as well. She's coming off a career high performance. And on the other side, too, you have Allison Choi, too, for Fishers, and then Schnaus and Spink will be the two talking points. But that's some other pieces around them. Watching Gibson Southern, for me, they were further along in their progression than I thought they were going to be. They were also a little bit more balanced than I was kind of expecting them to be. Obviously, they have their two go-to scorers, but they have other kids that you can rely on to hit some shots over the course of the game that's going to keep it close. That was a really back and forth and a fun game, an entertaining game. And like you said, Kyle does such a good job talking them up. And I think there's a lot to be said too for the energy that their bench brought. I don't think we talked about this yesterday, but I'm sure you noticed it too. They had the loudest bench and as a result, the loudest section of any of the teams there. And any team that I think I've seen at all this season, just so much energy. And that's so important for a team. And it can border on the corny and cheesy and cliche to talk about, but not for nothing. It's good energy. Kind of just kept the team going even during some of the hard, during the lulls and scoring over the course of the game. They're still there pumping each other up. And then once something went right, they kind of snowballed it quickly the other way, kind of the opposite of what we saw in the later game. But overall, impressed with Gibson Southern. And I have no reason to doubt their potential to make some noise there in 4A, especially considering, Castle's in their sectional, which is going to be tough. They lost them 58-32 earlier in the year, but you avoid the Indy area schools who are all kind of clustered up together. So whoever comes out of there, the Indy area schools are going to pick each other off. So you're only going to have to face one, maybe two of them in order to get back to Gamebridge. So the draw sets up favorably, and this is a team with the potential to do it again. And they know how to win, man. Like that, not for nothing. They've done it twice now. There's a reason that they're playing in 4A and not 3A this year, and that's because they win consistently. And that mentality it breeds in culture and cultivates.
Yeah. And Gabby's going to be better too. I mentioned that she missed some time to the knee. I mean, she didn't do anything for 3 months. Like, and this is a kid who worked out every day. I mean, she just couldn't, on the knee. She played an entire summer schedule with an injury. It was her last one. And so this is her senior year. She'll find a way, to make them figure in the mix, but they're going to be a tough out because they're so well coached and they have Gabby and they've got some different pieces. And I mean, she was starting sentences with like, we're the defending state champs. Like they know, I mean, they're good. They're really good. They just lost the game yesterday, but that doesn't mean anything we don't draw any long-term conclusion out of that in my opinion.
No, I think all positives, honestly, from that game from both sides in that instance. One last game, Danny, for us to at least touch on, that's Hamilton Southeastern 46, Fremd 41. I caught the first half of that game, and my biggest takeaway was Maya McAlusky, and that's just kind of the period. It's just Maya being Maya, hitting shots, HSE's ability to find her open and for her to knock down those shots. She had one 3-pointer that I accidentally tweeted out with my Players of the Week tweet this morning where she takes like a step in, catches it, takes a step back, and pops it and nails it. She's fun to watch. She's one of those players that, Ashton Shade's kind of the same way, and you just look back and it's like, man, I wish I could have seen her more, even though you do get to see them a lot. Julianne Woodard's with what she's doing is kind of the same energy. You know what I mean? Where just like, this is a really special kid, and you know that it's a special kid in the moment. So you just try to, soak it in when you do have the opportunity to see him. And man, Maya McAlusky is something else.
Yeah, I mean, it's plus 50% from the field, plus 50% from the 3-point line. I think she entered the game shooting 91% also from the line. I mean, the efficiency metrics are off the chart. But back to the game, it probably wasn't HSC's, prettiest output. I mean, I think it's a win. I think they'll take it. It's the holidays. They just looked a little bit off, but when they can get it going and they're all on the same page, it's pretty. One of the kids, like, let me see, about 2.5 minutes left. Okay. And I know we're just going to kind of breeze this game. About 2.5 minutes left in that game. They run a lot of flare action for Maya, and they used to do it just out of one set where it's like dribble, handoff, ball, reversal, flare. But now they have 2, 3, 4 different entries to the same action, which makes it really difficult to guard. And that's how Maya gets some of her production is off of that set. So anyways, they run one of the disguised entries into that flare action. Maya catches it and then it kind of ends up driving the ball to about 10 feet, takes a 1 foot leaner. Kennedy Holman, who really, I don't want to say struggled, but was she didn't, her point production was down in this basketball game. Okay. She did not have inside opposite position on that shot that Maya shot with 2.5 minutes left. Okay. She didn't have inside opposite position, but she wins a 50-50 on the weak side, kicks the ball diagonally to Brinley, I think it was. And if you watch the film, before the ball reaches Brinley, Maya is kind of spaced toward Brinley. KK's already yelling at Brinley, one more. Like you can see her hand gesturing to the corner, like one more. Brinley shoots it one more. Maya hits a 3. 2 possessions later, or 1 possession later, Maya gets an offensive rebound or defensive rebound, pushes the ball to about the volleyball line, NBA 3-point line, draws help, kicks it to Stidham, and then she hits a 3. Okay. So this isn't just Maya, right? I mean, Maya's efficiency numbers are off the chart, but the offensive rebound by KK, the extra pass from Brinley, the wherewithal to point that out and to scream it as the team leader that she is in Kennedy Holman. And then a possession later, Maya just hit a 3. Okay. She could have very easily just popped that thing from the volleyball line and been cool with it, but she didn't. She took a good shot and kicked it out to Stidham for a better shot. And by the way, to a 58% 3-point shooter, and she was money on that. So it was this nice little stretch in the game where if people will say, oh, well, that was an ugly win. It was an ugly win. At times it was a beautiful at times. And I think that was one of the times that it was. I mean, when they're moving it and that ball's in the air, it's something to watch.
Absolutely. Danny, we went about 80 minutes. Is there anything else that you didn't touch on? I feel like we've hit every game. We've talked about every team. We're going to see HSC again, and we'll talk about them again. So we'll give them adequate time here coming up. It's difficult to with the out-of-state teams. So I do
have one. I'll add one thing. Okay,
yeah, absolutely.
So Ella Todd, that was the name that we had talked about. She picks up 3 fouls in the first quarter, ends up sitting the entire second quarter, and then picks up her 4th foul 2 minutes into the third quarter and sits the entire third quarter. Okay. I'm gonna talk about, I don't know if this happens. I don't know. I've just been around the game long enough to know that it can happen. Okay. But Kennedy Holman, I'm going to suspect that she was going to guard Ella Todd. And when she does that, she is outstanding in an individual assignment, very similar to the flowers that we give Emma Shane when she does that. KK Holman's no different, right? And so she wakes up, she goes to bed, all the film that she watches, all the Google searches, all the reels that she watches are all on Ella Todd. And then she's so locked into that individual assignment that when Ella Todd is not in the basketball game, the majority of that game, Kennedy Holman wasn't guarding Ella Todd because Ella Todd was on the bench with foul trouble. Something like that can take you out of rhythm on both sides of the floor. I'm not saying that's what happens, but it definitely can, because now she's guarding somebody that she doesn't even really know on the scouting report. She doesn't know player tendencies. She doesn't know anything. So that's a very difficult thing for kids to have to do on the fly. And let's face it, like Kennedy's still she's a budding young star, right? I mean, she's outstanding both locally and nationally. She's outstanding. But, I think her not getting the Todd assignment the way that she maybe wanted to, or maybe was going to be assigned, I think is something that maybe led to her, maybe the delays in rhythm for her. But I told that story at about 2.5 minutes because it wasn't like she wasn't making plays. The kid was making plays. Like, do not look at the box score and do not look at point production and be like, oh, Kennedy Holman this or what. She was really good in that basketball game, and she continues to be. And they beat Fremd with that. I mean, what do they have? One double-figure score? Like, that's not HSC basketball, right? I mean, they always seem to have that secondary option. But, you led with Maya, but I just wanted to talk about KK and Stidham a little bit too. But yeah, we'll unpack HSC multiple times through the years,
That is a good point, though. They found a different way to win, and that's always important to see. Like, if you're a championship level team, you got to find different ways to win. And I'm guessing we'll probably see that again on Wednesday when they play Noblesville, a team that's going to be hungry for a statement win that has had HSC's number in the most important games in recent years. It's going to be another one where you got to find a way to win. You got to find a way, against Tipner and what she does. It's obviously a different look Noblesville team. It'll be interesting to see how they handle all that stuff.
Yep.
Well, that's it. We've gone 82 minutes. Listen to it all. We have it all timestamped there. Tomorrow on IndyStar.com, we'll have a recap insider with some superlatives on best things that I saw from Saturday, as well as players of the week. Of course, we'll do another Coach's Confidential later this week. Have some cool different long-term features, some projects. Been hanging out with some different people to do some behind-the-scenes type things. And yeah, we'll maybe have another podcast. I'm not sure yet. We're kind of getting into our rhythm here. If nothing else, Danny and I'll be back, I'm sure, for another weekly wrap pod. Hope everybody had a great Thanksgiving. We thank you all so much for watching, and we'll talk to you again soon.